You're walking through a park when you see someone being bullied. Your heart races with fear as you wrestle with the decision to help. Now imagine you're Keanu Reeves, the world's eyes upon you. What would you do in his shoes? In the next few minutes, you'll witness a real-life scenario that challenged this Hollywood star's character. His response not only stopped a bully, but sparked a movement of kindness. Are you ready to see how one person's courage can change countless lives? Brace yourself for a story that might just inspire you to be the hero in your own life. The sun dipped low, painting the sky in amber and rose hues. Keanu Reeves strolled through the park, seeking solitude after a grueling day on set. The crisp air and gentle rustling of leaves created a soothing atmosphere, allowing his mind to wander and muscles to relax. Suddenly, the tranquility shattered like glass. Cruel laughter pierced the air, sending a chill down Keanu's spine. With cautious steps, he approached the commotion. A group of teenagers surrounded a smaller boy, their faces twisted with cruel amusement as they shoved and taunted their victim. Keanu felt a deep connection to the frightened boy, remembering his own experiences with bullying. He wrestled with the decision to intervene, knowing it could be dangerous. But as he watched the younger boy's desperate eyes, Keanu knew he couldn't turn away. Taking a deep breath, he stepped forward. The bullies turned, recognizing the famous actor. Tension thickened the air as Keanu spoke, his voice calm but firm. "I've come to ask why you feel the need to hurt someone smaller than you. What does that prove?" The ringleader sneered. "Mind your own business, old man." Keanu stepped closer, radiating quiet strength. "When I see someone in pain, it becomes my business. We all have a responsibility to look out for each other." The teens shifted uncomfortably, torn between appearing tough and their awe of the celebrity. Keanu pressed on, his tone gentler. "I've been where you are. I know what it's like to feel angry, to want to lash out, but hurting others doesn't make that pain go away. It only spreads it around." As Keanu spoke, the smaller boy slowly straightened up. The actor gave him a reassuring smile before addressing the group again. "Think about how you want to be remembered. As those who made someone's life miserable, or those who had the courage to break the cycle of pain." A heavy silence fell. The teens exchanged glances, their bravado draining away. One by one, they backed away, muttering apologies. The ringleader was last to leave, giving Keanu a long look before turning away. Keanu knelt beside the younger boy. "Are you okay?" he asked softly. The boy nodded, eyes wide with relief and awe. "Thank you. I didn't think anyone would help me." Keanu placed a gentle hand on the boy's shoulder. "Remember this moment. Someday when you see someone else in need, be the one to step up. That's how we make the world a little better, one act of kindness at a time." As Keanu's words hung in the air, a hush fell over the park. The confrontation had drawn a small crowd, their faces a mix of awe and anticipation. What would happen next? The answer would leave everyone breathless. The bullies, caught up in their cruel game, hadn't noticed the approaching figure at first. But as Keanu's presence cast a long shadow across the grass, their laughter died in their throats. One by one, they turned to face the unexpected intruder, their eyes widening in disbelief. Recognition dawned on their faces like a slow-motion replay. Mouths fell open, words failing them as they realized who stood before them. The ringleader's swagger evaporated, replaced by a look of uncertainty that spread to his companions. The bullied teen, tears still streaking his face, looked up from where he had curled into himself for protection. His gaze traveled up, up, until it met the kind eyes of Keanu Reeves. The boy's expression shifted from fear to confusion to a fragile hope. For a moment, time seemed to stand still. The gentle rustling of leaves in the evening breeze was the only sound that dared break the silence. Then, Keanu's voice, low and steady, cut through the tension. "Hey, guys," he said, his tone conversational but carrying an unmistakable weight. "What's going on here?" The simplicity of his words belied their impact. The bullies shuffled their feet, suddenly unable to meet his gaze. The onlookers leaned in slightly, not wanting to miss a word. Keanu's unexpected approach left everyone off balance. There was no anger in his voice, no accusation, just a genuine curiosity that seemed to demand honesty in return. The park seemed to hold its breath as he addressed the group. "I couldn't help but notice things were getting a little intense over here," Keanu continued, his eyes moving from face to face. "And I gotta say, it doesn't look like everyone's having a good time." The ringleader, still struggling to find his voice, managed to stammer out, "We were just messing around, you know." Keanu nodded thoughtfully. Messing around can be fun, he agreed. But only if everyone's in on the joke. Otherwise, it's not really a joke anymore, is it? His words, simple yet powerful, held everyone in rapt attention. The bullies squirmed uncomfortably, their earlier bravado replaced by shame. The bullied teen, still wary, straightened up a little, drawing strength from Keanu's calm presence. As Keanu spoke, the air crackled with a mix of tension and hope. Phones that had been raised to record the confrontation were slowly lowered, their owners too engrossed in the moment to worry about capturing it for social media. You know, Keanu said, his voice taking on a more personal tone, I remember being your age. It's not always easy, is it? Sometimes it feels like the whole world is against you, and you just want to lash out. He paused, letting his words sink in. The bullies nodded almost imperceptibly, their defenses starting to crumble. But here's the thing, Keanu continued. Hurting someone else doesn't make that feeling go away. It might feel good for a moment, but in the end, it just adds more pain to the world. And we've got enough of that already, don't we? The ringleader's shoulders slumped, the fight going out of him entirely. We didn't mean to. We didn't think. Keanu smiled gently. That's okay. We all make mistakes. The important thing is what we do next. So, what do you think? Can we turn this around? The park held its collective breath, waiting to see how the bullies would respond. The ringleader looked at his friends, then at the boy they had been tormenting. Something shifted in his expression, a dawning realization, perhaps, or the first stirrings of empathy. Yeah, he said finally, his voice barely above a whisper. Yeah, I think we can. As if a spell had been broken, the tension in the air dissipated. The bullies, looking both relieved and ashamed, mumbled apologies to their victim. The boy, still wary but no longer afraid, nodded his acceptance. Keanu's presence had transformed a moment of cruelty into an opportunity for growth and understanding. The onlookers, who had been prepared to witness a celebrity scolding, instead found themselves part of a lesson in compassion and redemption. The park held its breath as Keanu's eyes locked with the lead bullies. What's your name? Keanu asked softly, addressing the red-haired ringleader. Jake, he mumbled, his bravado faltering under Keanu's steady gaze. Jake, Keanu repeated, his voice warm with empathy. I want to tell you a story, if that's all right. The park fell silent, every ear straining to catch Keanu's words. When I was about your age, Keanu began, his fingers tracing a small keychain in his pocket, I was the new kid, again. We moved around a lot, and I never quite fit in. One day, a group of guys cornered me behind the school. They were bigger, stronger, and there were more of them. I was terrified. Jake's tough facade began to crack, a flicker of recognition passing across his face. But then, something unexpected happened. The leader of the group, a kid named Mark, he looked at me and asked, Why are you always alone? And you know what? No one had ever asked me that before. It wasn't accusatory or mean. He was genuinely curious. Keanu paused, letting the words sink in. I told Mark the truth, about how hard it was to make friends when you're always the new kid, about feeling like an outsider. And you know what happened next, Jake? Jake shook his head, his eyes now fixed on Keanu's face. Mark put his hand on my shoulder and said, That sucks, man. Want to shoot some hoops with us? Just like that, everything changed. Those guys became my first real friends in that town. Keanu's voice carried a mix of strength and compassion. Jake, I see a lot of Mark in you. You have the power to change someone's whole world with a single act of kindness. It's a superpower, really. The kind that can turn a reluctant bystander into a true hero. The red-haired boy's eyes widened, a look of wonder replacing his earlier aggression. So I want to ask you something, Jake, Keanu said, his tone gentle but firm. What kind of person do you want to be? The one who tears others down or the one who lifts them up? Jake's gaze dropped to the ground, his shoulders slumping. Keanu knelt down, bringing himself to eye level with the teenager. You know, true strength isn't about dominating others. It's about having the courage to be kind, especially when it's hard. It's about standing up for those who can't stand up for themselves. Jake's eyes met Keanu's, brimming with a mix of shame and hope. I don't know how, he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. Keanu smiled warmly. It starts with a choice, Jake. Every moment is a new opportunity to be the person you want to be. Why don't we start now? He gestured towards the smaller boy, who had been watching the exchange with amazement. I bet if you got to know him, You might find you have more in common than you think. What do you say we all grab some ice cream and talk? The park held its collective breath, waiting for Jake's response. The teenager looked at his friends, then back at Keanu, and finally at the boy they had been tormenting. A moment passed, then another. Finally, Jake nodded, a small smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. Yeah, he said, his voice growing stronger. Yeah, I'd like that. The park fell silent as all eyes turned to the small, trembling figure at the center of the drama. The bullied teen, his face streaked with dried tears, looked up at Keanu with a mixture of awe and gratitude. For a moment, it seemed as if the world held its breath, waiting to hear what the boy would say now that he finally had a voice. Keanu knelt down, his eyes level with the teens. Gone was the stern protector who had faced down the bullies. In his place was a man of genuine concern, his face etched with compassion. "What's your name?" he asked softly, his voice barely above a whisper. Michael, the boy stammered, his voice cracking with emotion. Keanu smiled warmly. Michael, you're safe now. No one here is going to hurt you. How are you feeling? Michael's eyes darted nervously around the circle of faces. The bullies, once so menacing, now looked ashamed and uncomfortable. Onlookers watched with rapt attention, many of them wiping away tears at the scene unfolding before them. I've been scared for so long, Michael began, his voice barely audible. But as he spoke, something remarkable happened. With each word, his voice grew stronger, fueled by Keanu's unwavering support and the attentive silence of those around him. Every day, I wake up dreading school, Michael continued, his words now clear and steady. They call me names, push me around, and make me feel worthless. I've started to believe them. Keanu listened intently, nodding encouragingly. But you're not worthless, Michael. You're brave for speaking up now. It takes real courage to face your fears like this. As Michael spoke, the park seemed to fade away. The rustling leaves, the distant traffic, even the shuffling of feet, all fell silent in the face of this raw, honest testimony. The bullies, who had moments ago been full of bravado, now couldn't meet Michael's gaze. I used to love coming to this park, Michael said, his voice gaining strength with each sentence. It was my favorite place to read and draw, but lately I've been too afraid to come here. I feel like I don't belong anywhere anymore. Keanu gently squeezed Michael's shoulder. This park, this community, it's for everyone, and you have just as much right to enjoy it as anyone else. As Michael continued to speak, the air seemed to change, charged with a palpable sense of transformation. Onlookers who had gathered to watch the confrontation now found themselves deeply moved. Tears streamed down faces, and strangers reached out to comfort one another. I've always wanted to stand up for myself, Michael admitted, his voice now steady and clear. But I never knew how. I was too scared of making things worse. Keanu nodded understandingly. Fear can be paralyzing, but you're standing up for yourself right now, Michael. Your words are powerful. They're making a difference. Indeed, Michael's words, once silenced by fear, now echoed through the park with a strength that surprised even him. He spoke of his dreams, his passions, and the person he hoped to become. With each sentence, it was as if a weight lifted from his shoulders. The bullies, who had started the evening full of misplaced aggression, now stood with heads bowed. Jake, the ringleader, stepped forward hesitantly. I'm sorry, Michael, he said, his voice thick with remorse. I never realized. I didn't think. Keanu placed a gentle hand on Jake's shoulder. It takes courage to admit when we're wrong, he said. This is a chance for all of us to learn and grow. As Michael finished speaking, a newfound strength radiated from him. His shoulders, once hunched in fear, now stood straight. His eyes, previously downcast, now met the gaze of those around him with quiet confidence. The park, once a battleground of cruel words and trembling fear, now stood on the precipice of transformation. As Michael finished speaking, a newfound strength radiated from him. His shoulders, once hunched in fear, now stood straight. His eyes, previously downcast, met the gaze of those around him with quiet confidence. Keanu turned to address the entire group, his voice carrying a powerful message that seemed to resonate through the very air around them. The setting sun cast long shadows across the grass, painting the scene in hues of gold and amber. In that moment, the park felt like a stage, and every person present was about to witness an unforgettable performance. I want to share something with all of you, Keanu began, his voice soft yet commanding. Something I've never told anyone before. The group leaned in, drawn by the vulnerability in his tone. Even the birds seemed to hush their evening songs, as if nature itself was holding its breath. A heavy silence fell over the park as Keanu's eyes grew distant, looking into a past only he could see. When I was younger, not much older than you all, I lost my best friend, he said, his words weighted with grief. His name was River, and he was like a brother to me. The group remained captivated by the raw emotion in Keanu's voice. Jake, the former ringleader of the bullies, shifted uncomfortably, his earlier bravado completely dissolved. River died of an overdose outside a nightclub, Keanu continued, his voice barely above a whisper. I was there that night, but I couldn't save him. For years I carried that guilt, that pain. I thought I'd never escape it. A collective gasp rippled through the group. Michael, the once bullied teen, found himself reaching out to place a comforting hand on Keanu's arm. But you know what I learned? Keanu asked, his gaze sweeping across the faces before him. I learned that pain, when shared, can become a bridge. It can connect us in ways we never imagined. The park began to transform into a place of understanding. The invisible barriers between bully and victim, celebrity and ordinary person, began to crumble. Each of us carries pain, Keanu continued, his voice growing stronger. Each of us has felt alone, misunderstood, or afraid. But when we open ourselves to others, when we choose empathy over judgment, something magical happens. Jake, his head bowed, whispered, I'm sorry, I didn't know. His words, though quiet, carried across the group. The other former bullies nodded, their eyes glistening with unshed tears. Keanu's message wove a tapestry of empathy, connecting everyone present. We're all fighting battles others can't see, he said. The kid you think has it all together? He might be struggling with depression. The girl who always seems angry? She might be dealing with abuse at home. The quiet boy in the back of the class? He might be carrying the weight of his family's expectations. As Keanu spoke, onlookers found themselves questioning their own past actions and beliefs. Parents exchanged glances, silent promises passing between them to have deeper conversations with their children. But here's the beautiful thing, Keanu said, a smile breaking through the seriousness of his expression. We have the power to change. Every day, every moment, we can choose kindness. We can choose to see beyond the surface, to reach out to someone who's hurting. The park, bathed in the warm glow of the setting sun, seemed to pulse with a new energy. It was as if Keanu's words had awakened something in each person present, a reminder of their shared humanity. River's death taught me that life is precious, and that our connections to each other are what give it meaning, Keanu said, his voice thick with emotion. So I challenge each of you. Look around. See the person next to you. Really see them. And ask yourself, how can I make their day a little brighter? As Keanu's words sank in, a collective shift in energy swept through the group. Michael stood taller, his earlier fear replaced by quiet determination. Jake and his friends huddled together, whispering plans to start a peer support group at their school. Parents stepped forward, eager to be part of this moment of change. One mother embraced her son, whispering apologies for not seeing his pain sooner. Keanu's message resonated with a universal truth about human connection, one that transcended age, status, and background. In that moment, the park had become a crucible of transformation, a place where hearts were opened and minds were changed. As the transformative energy pulsed through the park, Keanu's work wasn't finished. He turned to face Jake and Michael, his eyes gleamy, with an unexpected challenge. The crowd held its breath, wondering what this Hollywood star could possibly ask of a bully and his victim that would change everything. Keanu's voice, soft yet powerful, carried across the hushed gathering. Jake, Michael, I want you to do something that might feel uncomfortable at first. Tomorrow, meet here, at this very spot. Spend an hour together, just talk. Share your stories, your fears, your dreams. Then, find one person in your school who seems lonely or left out. Reach out to them, together. The park fell silent as the weight of Keanu's request settled over the group. Jake shifted uneasily, his eyes darting between Keanu and Michael. Michael, still standing tall from his earlier courage, looked uncertain but intrigued. As Keanu's words sank in, something remarkable began to unfold. Jake, tears glistening in his eyes, took a hesitant step towards Michael. His hand, once clenched in anger, now stretched out in a gesture of peace. I'd like to try, Jake said, his voice barely above a whisper. If you're willing, Michael. Michael paused, years of fear and mistrust warring with the newfound strength he'd discovered. Then, slowly, he reached out and clasped Jake's hand. "Okay," he said, a mix of caution and hope in his voice. "Let's try." Their joined hands formed a bridge, spanning years of hurt and misunderstanding. It was a small gesture, but one that held the promise of profound change. A wave of emotion swept through the crowd. Parents exchanged glances, their eyes shining with unshed tears and renewed determination. Conversations sparked throughout the park, voices urgent and passionate as people shared their own experiences with bullying and kindness. A mother approached Keanu, her arm wrapped around her daughter's shoulders. "Thank you," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "You've given us all so much to think about." Keanu nodded, a gentle smile playing on his lips. "That's where it starts. In our homes, in our schools, in our communities. We all have the power to make a difference, one small act at a time." As the sun began to dip lower in the sky, the energy in the park shifted. Where there had once been division and fear, now there was a palpable sense of unity and purpose. People who had been strangers just hours before were now engaged in deep, meaningful conversations. A group of teenagers huddled together, phones in hand. "We should start a kindness challenge at school," one suggested, her fingers flying over her screen. "Spread Keanu's message to everyone we know." Michael found himself surrounded by a small group of his peers, listening intently as he shared more of his story. For the first time in a long while, Michael felt seen and heard. Jake sat on a nearby bench, deep in conversation with his former gang of bullies. Their faces were serious, occasionally nodding as Jake spoke. It was clear that Keanu's words had sparked a profound change in their attitudes. As the evening wore on, Keanu prepared to leave. But before he did, he gathered everyone around one last time. "Remember," he said, his voice carrying across the crowd, "true strength isn't about dominating others. It's about having the courage to be kind, to stand up for what's right, even when it's difficult." He paused, looking around at the faces turned towards him. "What happened here today doesn't end when you leave this park. Carry this feeling with you. Let it guide your actions. Be the change you want to see in the world, one small act of kindness at a time." As the crowd dispersed, the air hummed with possibility. Jake and Michael's eyes met, a silent understanding passing between them. Tomorrow's meeting held the potential for something extraordinary, not just for them, but for their entire community. As twilight settled over the park, the impact of Keanu's intervention lingered. The tense atmosphere had transformed into a harmonious buzz of understanding. Parents discussed fostering kindness at home, while teenagers exchanged numbers to continue the dialogue. Michael, once invisible, now stood tall among new friends, sharing his passion for art with Jake. The park had become a sanctuary of hope. As night fell, the crowd dispersed, carrying seeds of change. Keanu's words echoed, "True strength lies in kindness." The silent park witnessed one person's power to make a difference. A challenge was born, to carry this ripple of kindness into the world beyond.